Hello everyone, this is Tracy Zhang and I'm here today to tell you about my field experience for EDU518 through Waynesburg University Graduate Education Program. I completed my field experience with Blended Schools Network, which is now called Global Personalized Academics. This company provides virtual and classroom learning to students globally, not only in the United States but also globally. They market to school districts, administrators, as well as teachers and parents. Their ads state that they are Common Core aligned, textbook free, and highly interactive. So I found that this was a worthwhile experience and that they offered many online and blended courses. The course that I worked with, Anatomy and Physiology Credit Recovery, was a prepackaged course, and so it had very specific requirements. It was aligned to Common Core, as I mentioned, and Blended Schools had a really great tool. When you clicked the link to go to the standards, it took you to this huge chart so you could select your state or country or that sort of thing as far as standards. It included multiple ways of engaging the student for mastery of learning the content, and they were textbook free. So that's the INACOL standard right there of aligned with the state standards and national standards for mastery of learning. Standard B also was met. That's instructional design, and the instructional design included very active learning, multiple pathways with ample opportunities for interaction in all of the dimensions, teacher-student, student-student, and also teacher and parents. So there was a great deal of communication in the course and interaction built in, also the student to the content. So Standard C included student assessment, and this also offered appropriate methods for the age group and the content with multiple ways of assessment. There was ongoing feedback. There were projects for each unit. There were quizzes at the end of each lesson, 5 to 7 questions with multiple methods of questioning. It included extensive, very clear rubrics, a variety of resources, and very clear grading policies. Standard D included technology that was very specific. They had a huge page of support for technology issues. They accommodated multiple calendars. They had very clear navigation, and they extended the student learning. Standard E for the INACOL standards was also met. They frequently have the courses evaluated by outside evaluators and content experts. The courses were also evaluated by students and teachers and updated often. The teacher I worked with was very qualified. She was certified in Virginia in physics and general science for grades 6 through 12. She's been out of school 5 years and teaching through that time in a physical school district in Virginia. She teaches physics, AP Physics, General Science, and AP Science. And she completed online training with Blended Schools before embarking on her online teaching experience, which she started working with this summer. The field experience student that I worked with, and I say student because there was one student in this class, she really couldn't give me information on this student as far as the teacher was concerned because of privacy issues, but it's a credit recovery course, so the student needed the course credit in order to pull up her grades and get credit for high school graduation. Blended Schools Learning also offers significant accommodation and differentiation. They have assistive technology, which can work throughout the learning management system. They have adaptive release, as Terry talked about, for tests, quizzes, and you can make accommodations for various projects and that sort of thing. Blended Schools is not responsible for buying the assistive technology for students who may require that. For example, a blind student may need a Braille reader or Braille keyboard or a computer that reads the lessons out to them. The learning management system that was used was Blackboard. Blended learning schools have two possible learning management systems, both Blackboard and Canvas. Anatomy and Physiology used Blackboard. I found that it was very flexible and easy to use. It included many tools, more than I saw with the Waynesburg Blackboard, and it did include a preset layout that seemed to be consistent throughout all of the company's schools. Negatives, I found that, through the collaborative session, the video shared screen loading was very slow, and if a person moved the mouse too fast, then it just kept moving and was very difficult to see. Blackboard is one of the more expensive learning management systems out there, and so that's always a consideration when using a learning management system like that, as compared to Sakai, which I used at another university. Sakai was very difficult to learn to use. It had many parts that didn't always work, and that's not uncommon with an open source type of program. The Blackboard learning management system that I used for the Blended Schools course had some video and sound issues on some days, not all of the days, but on the days where we did have issues, I had a hard time getting the Go Animate cartoons. They had 1 to 2 minute cartoons at the very beginning as a lesson introduction. So it was at the beginning of each lesson, and they looked very cool, but they were narrated by a man, and for a couple of the days I had a very difficult time because I had no sound. The teacher presentations also had no sound on those days. Other days things worked just fine. And I know it wasn't my computer because I double-checked and went to other sites and that sort of thing on the internet, and things functioned just fine. The student technology skills required for actually students and teachers are very typical computer skills. The ability to edit, read, and create Word documents, spreadsheets, presentations, to work with images, to play and record and have the sound work, for video, access the web, and that sort of thing. For the teacher computer skills, I would add create videos, although sometimes we have students do that as well. Podcasts, they have a nice tool for podcast feedback for students, which I would think that'll be very cool to be using on a regular basis. They use Go Animate videos, teacher presentations that are screen capture recordings. They use quite a number of Web 2.0 tools that increase interactivity, like various games and that sort of thing. The course structure, this was a prepackaged course that was fully online, including synchronous and asynchronous sessions. It was designed for 9th and 10th grade high school, and there was one student in this particular. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the course itself. So here is the page, and you can see that it's divided into 4 units, and each unit includes 5 or 6 lessons. These are very short lessons, and each lesson included a Go Animate hook or introduction, and it also had a pretest, which they added this year. So that was kind of a neat feature, to add a pretest and see where the student's at, so you can try and measure how much was learned by the student. The teacher presence was definitely throughout, with teacher presentations and that sort of thing. And the teacher I worked with also used very extensive emails, announcements, communication with the student. She did weekly collaborative live sessions. She did a blog with this particular student, since there was only one, but typically they do a discussion board, which she showed me, and she would facilitate that early and often to have a teacher presence available and visible to the students. Every assessed item except for the interactive games had a rubric with it. Well, and tests and quizzes, those also were simply graded based on content and mastery of the specific test itself. But everything else, and each unit had a project associated with it, and there was also a course challenge that was an overreaching course, large project that the student could do. And they all had very clear rubrics. They were easy to find. They popped up on the same page with the assignment or the project assignment, which I thought was fantastic because you didn't have to do any extra navigation. And from my experience, students hate to have to do extra navigation unless it's for their own personal social media on their phones. She also held virtual office hours in Collaborate, and she did feedback using video tools, podcasts, and she did very frequent project feedback that was formative and targeted for the student. They also had an achievement tool, which I really liked. It highlighted achievements of students in the course. The parent involvement, the teacher sent a letter to the parents before the course started, and there was a parent tool on every page so that if there was any questions or problems, a parent could actually go in and observe what the student was doing, look at recordings, and just make sure that their student was on target. So maintaining good communications with the parents is very important. The time commitment, the estimate on the Blended Learning Schools pages for this course were about 12 hours per unit for students, give or take. Now, as a credit recovery course, the teacher I worked with said that often students have mastered certain parts of the course in the past, and so for those, they just blow through it very quickly because they've already mastered that content as compared to a student who was struggling with a particular concept or lesson. This teacher said that she put in about 12 hours a week this summer, and she was teaching 2 courses. So she said she reserved Tuesday and Thursday through most of the days for teaching the course, and that included her virtual office hours. And so that also gave her time through Collaborate to work with students on the various project issues as well. Students, of course, were welcome to set up office visits with her through Collaborate any other time, and she also had email and Blackboard IM messaging available as well as texting. She discussed that there were no discipline issues in this course that she had encountered. With one student, it's probably less likely to have discipline issues. But if they do occur, blended learning has resources for that and support. And of course, you have parent contact, which is, a parent can go in through the parent tool and see exactly what occurred. And then, of course, you would first want to use the strategies Terry talked about, where you contact the student, make suggestions, and be very clear with what your expectations are. Grading and attendance policies. Grading policies are sent to the student by the teacher for each course with Blended Learning Schools. These depend on school district policies in many cases in the United States. So it's very important that the student meet the grading and attendance policies and work with things from there. Rubrics are posted for all activities so the student sees the rubric beforehand. And I have to tell you, I recently took a course where you didn't see the rubric till afterwards, and that was no fun at all. Feedback was formative throughout, including the discussion board. There was automatic grading of quizzes, some Web 2.0 learning activities, which were also graded, and attendance was tracked by a course clock. So that recorded dates, times, and hours engaged. My evaluation of this course included that the projects and interactions were extensive. I was very impressed with the open-ended critical thinking that they engendered, although I felt some of the lessons were very simplistic for students of that age. My concern is that lab time requirements are increasing with the new next generation standards, but other than that, it met all I and AOCL standards. So thank you for listening.